Hey all, welcome to Step-by-Step NLP. Today we had an event where we kind of covered kind of a storyline about a company, and we covered kind of how to do step-by-step NLP. But what I heard from a lot of the watchers out there, a lot of our deep learner watchers out there, is that they wanted to see more details. They wanted to see a slower pace. They wanted to see something that was a little more step-by-step than what I actually presented today. And, loud and clear, I think that's, what a lot of you signed up for and you didn't quite get it today. So I want to make sure that we do hit that. So I want to walk through step by step, slower this time, to show you exactly in real time how all of this kind of plays out. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to just first get started. The storyline, if you want to kind of watch the storyline, I would go and I would check out the event that we did live. This is going to be more about the details, about how we just build this kind of chat bot. The storyline was, in broad strokes, just kind of a fortune-telling bot is what we were aiming at. And we wanted our fortune-telling bot to be trained on Reddit data, right? So we kind of have like a savage fortune-telling bot. And so this is kind of the idea of what we're aiming at. And the way that we might go do that is we might go to, Hugging Face, and we might start looking for models. That's what our characters in our story did. And, if we go to models, we might start kind of like looking at how to, filter this a little bit. We might say, hey, like what exactly can we look at? Audio, computer vision? No, I want NLP. Maybe question answering. That's what I want. And if you look at question answering, I think just kind of having it like this as most downloads, it's pretty helpful, right? It's pretty helpful. And you can look through a number of these. You might find some even better ones than we use today. But, I kind of went through and I was looking for, most recently updated. I was looking for most likes. I was looking for different ones. And ultimately, I decided to go with one that was more straightforward to show, because if a lot of these, if you click on them, you don't really see necessarily, actually this one's great too, tells you exactly kind of how to run it. But a lot of them aren't necessarily like, here's the one way to run it, and it's really, really clear in the code. This one's got 3 million, the Roberta-based Squad 2. Model. So these are great, right? These are great. But, ultimately the Dilo GPT data set and model, for whatever reason, it's not coming up when I search in models, is the one that I thought was trained on the most relevant data to what I was trying to kind of put forth today. And I went with this one primarily because it's really, really easy to say, hey, look how to use this code. It's really straightforward, and it's one of the easiest ones out there. And you can even test it, right? Like, hey, Dilo, what is my fortune today? And so, this will, load up. I'm not sure, but I think it's a good one. Yeah, that's apt, Dilo. That's apt. Thanks, D. All right, appreciate it. So, this thing did pretty good on the Turing test. This thing sounds like it was trained on Reddit data when you talk to it. So it's kind of fun. The idea is that we can basically take this this code, and we can plug it directly into Jupyter Notebook if we have our libraries. And that's really all there is to it. Like, I could sit here and I could, rather than using the whole virtual environment Ubuntu thing, I could just use my Windows machine like Anaconda prompt, and I could say, I could just, I think I have enough in my base virtual environment, but to just deploy Jupyter Notebook, and like straight away, if this is how you have it set up, you could just do this and you'd be good to go. But that's not kind of what I showed, because the point of this isn't necessarily to use the simplest tools for data science. It's to use the simplest tools to like build and deploy. And so rather than doing that, what I went with is kind of this Windows terminal and this Windows subsystem for Linux setup. So if you kind of look at what they're calling WSL2 now. This is called Windows Subsystem for Linux, and this has been like a big success, quite frankly, over the last year for Microsoft. What it is it allows you to not really do the whole dual boot thing and allows you to kind of bypass that. And so it runs a little bit slower than if you had like a pure Linux OS, but WSL2 is a lot faster than WSL1. These tools are getting better all the time. And it's been very popular. So I don't think it's going away as the race to, dominate open source continues. So I found it to be a useful tool for small projects like this. And so I encourage usage of it at this point, especially if you just have a Windows machine still and that's what you're working with. It's the easiest way to get up and running. So you have to actually go and install this. So make sure that you have that installed. And then the other piece that you have to install is you have to install Microsoft Terminal. So Terminal is sort of meta to Microsoft PowerShell. And if you just kind of like get it through the Microsoft Store here, you're good to go. And then you can open it up on your machine. And that's what we've got here. So what you see when you first open it up is it actually opens up PowerShell. And then what you do, if you want to go use the other distributions of whatever can be supported through Windows Terminal, Ubuntu is one of those things, then you've got that available for you in this little drop-down menu. So we're going to kind of like start here as if we just opened up any terminal program on a Linux distribution. Okay, so since I already set this up earlier, we don't really need to do these steps, but we're going to do them anyways for, full kind of effect. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to come in and you want to update things. The second thing you want to do is you actually want to install Python 3 pip. This is going to get us really like set up. You can see we've already installed it on this. So if you have a fresh WSL2, then this will need to install because you see we're still in the root directory. We're not in the virtual machine. So, I think that one of the things that we want to do next is we want to kind of like make sure that we're good to go on the most recent stuff, and we also want to make sure that we can create virtual environments. And I think these are the commands that I used in the event today. So this is, there's a lot of ways to do installation of different packages, and you might use slightly different commands. I wouldn't worry too much about that. The overall point is that what you need to do is you need to make sure you have Python, you have pip, you can create virtual environments, and the easy way to do that is to use this virtual environment package. So if we have that, then we can just create a new virtual environment. We call it whatever we want. We called it Chatty VM earlier. Let's call it, how about not so chatty VM? How about that? And we'll just go with that today. And this is how we sort of create our new virtual environment. Then what we want to do after we create that is we'll do not so chatty VM, and we'll do the activation of that. And the syntax for doing that in this particular case looks like this. In other cases, it might look slightly different. Depending on which tool you use for this, right? Like the way you activate, from earlier, like the way you would activate something in Anaconda prompt versus in Ubuntu, like these things are different. But this is the way to do it in this particular case. And once we have that, then we are now in our fresh virtual environment. And the virtual environment, this new virtual machine, it's basically a virtual operating system for us to kind of like do whatever we want with. And this is where we need to start creating like individual dependencies and individual libraries. So we want to have Jupyter in here. It's not in here yet. It might be in our root. It might be elsewhere on our computer. It might be connected to Anaconda, but it's not in here yet. And so if we, install this, it might take a little minute. Then now we can use Jupyter through this sort of guest operating system in our virtual machine. I'll wait for this to kind of finish. So like this was kind of this is the tough thing about doing it in 1 hour, right? Is that a lot of times you're sitting here and you're waiting and you're waiting. But, that's programming life. I mean, waiting. Especially, again, like some of this would run faster if it wasn't through WSL2, but that's what we're using. And so if that's what you've got to use, you got to use what you got to use to get the job done. So, I did cut a lot of this sort of waiting time out of, the videos that you saw in the event and the videos that are up on YouTube today. But, yeah. So this is going to get us access to Jupyter Notebook. And I'm hoping that we can do this in under an hour so that, and I think we can. The big key is the waiting. So if you're doing this in real time, along with, feel your pain on waiting. And if your computer is doing it faster, then that's a cool baseline for you to understand as well. Guess we don't need you, PowerShell. Yeah, sometimes it's pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. This is part of the reason why our sessions in the MLOps program are like long. They're long. Some of the stuff it takes a while. And, admittedly, what we did earlier wasn't super representative of how long things take. But, you gotta try to jazz it up if it's kind of boring. Okay, we're in business. But there's more to do, right? As we saw kind of in the event, what we need transformers and we need torch on this. So we're going to get transformers and we're going to get torch. I'm going to try to not do the Alt-Tab freak out stuff. Try to just drag and make it a little bit more chill. So we want to install torch. And like when it comes to setting up virtual machines and containers, like this is the stuff that takes so long. Is like setting up the dependencies, setting up the libraries, setting up everything that makes you finally able to leverage what you need. And then really we were kind of gluttonous today in setting up everything. Like they're like slimmed down versions of things. And I installed a bunch of packages that we didn't even need to install. And I mean, this is just like quick and dirty is what we did today. Any software engineer, I'm sure, is just kind of looking at what we did like, oh man. But the idea is that, as a data scientist, particularly, one like, like the character we talked about earlier, like Jay, a lot of data scientists out there, they're really not into some of the more rigorous computer science, software engineering stuff. And so we want to kind of ease into that. And that's one of the tough things, right? That's one of the tough things is easing into that. I think we saw, maybe you saw in the kind of MLOps launch that, had Andrew Ring, and it had a couple guys from Google who are kind of like the fellows, Lawrence Moroney, and then the other guy, I think Robert, like, he really said that the latter guy, he said, hey, like, there's really no way around it. Like, you have to be great at data science, and you have to be great at software engineering. That's MLOps. And so, as an MLOps instructor, what I hope to do is I hope to like encourage people to get better at the software engineering side. And there's always an infinite number of things on software engineering to get better at. And I'm no sort of expert on every single thing software engineering related. The space is exploding all the time. It has been for many years. And so to try to keep pace with every single technology in every space, it's just unmanageable for anyone in any job. And, you have a particular system that you work with, and you're kind of focused on that. So we all have our, unique set of experiences. But the more that we can be open to kind of like the next thing, the better. So pip install torch. We got to do the same thing for transformers. And these are big, right? These are big. So there would be ways to just call out specific one or two or three pieces of things. But again, this is the quick and dirty way. If we can get it working and we can go one all the way through, then we can go back and say, man, do we really need a 4 gig container image? No. And that's the kind of thing that if you start having discussions with people, they'll bring up. And it'll be really clear and really obvious that, like, for what you're trying to do, it doesn't make any sense to have that much stuff in that container. And that's when you get to sort of the data management side, right? That's when you get to sort of, starting to think about things like, well, if it's bigger, what are the trade-offs? If it runs slower, what are the trade-offs? These sort of more software engineering questions that I think we need to ask ourselves as data scientists in 2021, fundamentally. The days of data science is research. There's a lot of searching and researching all the time, of course, but I think those are largely coming to a close. Like, it's really about business value creation, and no one knows how to create business value by building as well as like the best software engineers out there. So, we really need to start taking pages out of their book. Okay, so Not So Chatty is now set up. At this point, we can basically use Jupyter Notebook, and this gets us to the end of kind of step 1. If we kind of, call out Jupyter Notebook, we can use kind of this local host link. And this is the same. So this 127.0.0.1 is the same thing as the local host. So this will come back. We'll see this in a little bit. So I'm just going to control, hit this. You'll see, hey, it's opened. I'm going to bring it over. And I'm going to, you'll see there's the local host, right? There it is. And I'm just going to copy and paste now directly from Hugging Face. and we should be Shift Enter, good to go. Again, kind of everything was sped up today a little bit. All right, so yeah, will the sun come out tomorrow? I think is what we did. I hope so. Okay, same answer. Are you sure? Okay. All right, that's a fortune teller right there. And I guess I could have done this. Probably should have done this, but okay. So what we'll do next is we will move on to step 2. So we can X out of this, leave. We don't actually need Jupyter, so we're gonna Control C, cancel this, shut down the notebook server. Yes. Shut down confirmed. Okay. Then I'm just gonna clear the page. What I kind of did next is I said, yeah, but the ML model is not enough. We need the front end and we need the back end. And so the idea was, how do you go and how do you find sort of, chatbot, user interface, GitHub, and so you might start looking at these types of things. There's a lot of kind of like UIs out there that you can pick from, right? Like here's one, top result. This is kind of a cool one, right? This is kind of a cool one. And so you could leverage any of these, really. You could leverage any of these. But, I forget exactly what I was Googling at the time, but it was something related to this. And ultimately that led me to this, it was, I don't know, the day or two after Halloween. And so looks like we got, 1 star here. From shouting out Gotham chatbot earlier, so very cool. And yeah, so this looked like, hey, this will get the job done for me. And so all I did is I went and I copied this code. So I could clone this whole repository. And the way that I was going to do that was from the command line here. But first, and I think actually I did, sudo apt install git, pip or sudo apt install, like, either way. I think, no, yeah. Yeah, so sudo apt install git. That's what we should use. So, essentially after you do that, now you can do git clone, paste this, and now you've got it pasted. Now sort of like the file structure that's here is now in your not so chatty VM virtual environment. So the way that looks, you'll see it in users, Greg L. And so I'm going to try to, there's not a ton of great ways to do, to view this in Windows, but essentially this is my sort of users, Greg L folder. And now you can kind of see not so chatty VM is here. But we also now see Gotham chatbot is here. So just because we're in the virtual environment doesn't mean it's inside like the not so chatty VM folder. That's just sort of the way that we allocate space for the stuff we need for that guest OS. So we still kind of like are creating this new repository, we're cloning this repository into C users Greg L, even though we're using the not so chatty virtual machine. And then if we have this, all we have to do is run it after we actually go into Gotham chatbot. Because what flask run is looking for is it's looking for this app.py file. And this is the file that is actually running the app. So when we call flask run, it basically looks for app.py, and then it essentially runs this script. This is kind of a setup Flask thing. This is kind of a Flask setup thing. This is specific to the having the index.html front end thing and the template up there. This is kind of a Flask or an app.py Flask thing as well. So really, like, we just need to really like define our functions, and we need to like import our libraries beyond this Flask library, and we need to kind of initialize our model and and or data right here. Okay, so that's in, again, like I guess making this a little bit bigger. I'm actually not sure how to increase the font size on this text. I guess it's worth figuring out if we do more of these types of things in the future at Fourth Brain. But yeah, so this is kind of the setup in Gotham Chatbot. Once we're in there, we're looking for the app.py file when we call flask run. And what it runs is it runs everything you saw in that app.py file. And you'll notice one of the first things it says is, hey, this is a development server. Do not use it in a production deployment. Okay, so one of the things that is important to note here is like Flask, right? Flask app simple. Like if we could just like go to kind of the simplest possible Flask app, it might look something like this. And when you go to Flask's website, you'll see that it tells you a little bit about, this local host. It also says that you are actually creating this externally visible server, and we'll see this in a second with this sort of additional command that we'll add to our app.py file. And then I think that, the main thing to consider is that this launches a very simple built-in server, which is good enough for testing, right? But again, not what we want in production. For production servers, you know what it means to go to production? It's the same thing that it meant for GCP, for AWS. It means they want your money, okay? That's what it means. It means no more open source for you. You want to go into production? That's fine. Heroku can help you with that. Google App Engine can help you with that. All of these people can help you with that. But you know what else they can help you with is taking your money. So if you want to really create something truly open source, then you want to make sure that you're not really worried about the whole like production server thing too early. So there's a ton of ways to set this up for production. That's beyond the scope of what we're doing today, though. All right. So that's certainly worth noting, and we continue to see that command. And since we have debug mode off, we'll just keep it that way. There's more on debug mode on the Flask website as well. So we can, control hit this, and then now we've got our app. And this is Batsy. Gotham Chatbot did this. So, hey, Batsy, what's up, my friend? And Batsy, are you sentient? It's a little, I don't know how I feel about you going straight there, Batsy. I guess I'll have to remember to sort of zoom in on this as well. I know some of this is kind of difficult to see. That was some other feedback we got today as well. So you can see we're in this 127.0.0.1. This is the local host, and we are, on port. We're exposed to port 5000 in this case. And this is, again, if you look at the Flask, kind of the way they operate, this is the sort of built-in default Flask port. So this sort of colon number is exposed to port. Okay, so that's it for that. What we really want to do now is we want to just like, okay, cancel out of that. We actually don't need that. What we really want is we want to take this app and we want to modify it. But the way that I sort of was doing that in the presentation is I said, okay, I'm going to copy this Gotham chatbot and I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to rename the Gotham chatbot. I'm going to rename it Dialo, all lowercase, Dialo GPT bot. Let's go with, I think I called it chatbot earlier. We can call it bot. So Dialo GPT bot. So this is a copy paste. We really don't need like, this stuff. But if it doesn't matter, it doesn't hurt. And then the other thing is I said, yeah, well, Brent looked into Flask. Brent was another character, and he went through and he realized that and he looked into transformers, and he realized that the thing we really need to change is this PyYAML. It's going to yell at us if we don't. And we want to make sure that we are, installing Torch. And basically, these are just the most recent versions of Torch and transformers. And, I said, hey, Brent looked at this and he's like, hey, we don't need Chatterbot. Don't really care about any of this other stuff. I know PyYAML. Now, if you really wanted to go in and say, okay, what do we care about? What do we not care about? I would encourage everyone to do that. This is going to help you on the production server side. Some of this stuff is specific to the front end that we're using the Gotham chatbot thing. Obviously, if you're an NLP person, you're like, hey, we don't need NLTK either, so we can ditch that. And the rest of this stuff you can kind of go through and you can kind of see, you can remove stuff, and if it breaks, then you should put it back, kind of thing. But I'm not going to go through each one of these line by line here. Those are the main ones that took a lot of time, and so I wanted to kind of ditch them. And they kind of made it confusing too from an NLP perspective. Then we go over to this app.py, and essentially what we're doing here is we want to get rid of the Chatterbot stuff, and we want to get rid of everything that's kind of not helping us. And this is kind of the main setup that we're going to leverage. And I'm just going to, I'm going to go back to Hugging Face directly this time. And I'm just going to copy and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to realize like, hey, I'm going to take the first few lines and it seems like they should go up top. Then I'm going to take the next few lines and they should go where the chatbot initialization code was, below this app equals, okay, below the app equals. And then for this sort of like generate the response thing, it should be based on user text, and it should be in this getBot response function. So we're just gonna, tab over because it needs to be aligned. The for loop needs to be aligned with the function definition. And then rather than have this input box that pops up in our Jupyter notebook, we're actually going to use user text. Right? And so we just, boom, straight replace that. And then rather than have a preprint of like a Dialo GPT says, blah, 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 and then have a specific format, like we already know what format the Gotham chatbot wanted. The way it was set up already. It wanted this to just be a string. So we'll just turn it into a string. Like, fine. That seems easy enough. And, that's really all we need to do right now. Like, I think I did some stuff here in App Run at this point, but we really can get away with just that right now. So app and requirements. So that basically leaves us in a space where we've got kind of the new app and the new requirements doc that's in the Dilo GPT bot file folder. So we can go back to our terminal. We can go back one level of folder structure, and then we can go up one level into Dilo GPT bot. And then we can do the same exact thing. We can call flask run. And you see it doesn't take quite as long at the beginning because we got rid of the stuff we needed to get rid of. And we can just straight open it up on our new server. And what you'll notice is, I actually forgot to change this text. But now it is smarter. So like, hi Batsy, how are you today? Oh, okay. It's not smarter because it's still asking me, are you sentient? And let's figure out why not. Dilo GPT bot, flask run, Dilo GPT bot. Maybe I was updating the wrong. Yeah, I was updating the wrong app. This is actually what the app looks like in Dilo GPT bot. So I was updating the original app. So we're gonna actually just copy and paste what we just created into the right folder now. And similarly, it looks like we're good to go on the requirements doc. Yeah, we're good to go. And since I forgot, anyways, to do this, let's go ahead and update now so we know we're looking at the right thing. Let's update this to Dilo GPT bot fortune teller. And then kind of this first line that we saw, right? This first line, hi, I'm Batsy, come on and chat with me. This is what we can change here. So here's where we're like, okay, hi, ask me anything. I tell fortunes and predict the future. All right. And that's really all we need to do, because otherwise this is set up. You know, you could change the way this looks, but really, like, we don't need to. We don't need to. Not for MVP status. Not unless you want to like make it your company colors or whatever else. Like, there's a lot we could do here, but that's more on the front end coding HTML side. All right. So now that we kind of have this set up, now we're going to cancel this and we're going to run it again. And I'm going to shut it down first. Let's see where we're getting an error here. We're getting an error in app.py. We're getting an error in tokenizer. Let's see, what did we do wrong? Tokenizer. We're getting an error in tokenizer. And we are getting this error because we have an unmatched parenthesis. So oh, this is the Gotham chatbot one. Tokenizer, decode. Yeah, not sure. That looks good. Oh, this is the parenthesis. Classic. Okay, yeah. All All right, so that's the parenthesis. There we go. So if we save that and we rerun it, again, I'm in the wrong folder. Gotham chatbot, classic. So I'm going to do all this and paste it, even though all I have to do is just remove that parenthesis. Now we should be good to go. And it takes a little bit longer now because we have a bigger model. And now, hi, ask me anything, I tell fortunes. Am I going to stop making stupid mistakes? I don't know. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, even if, no matter what you say, unless you say, no way. Nah, okay, well played, well played. Well played, Dialo. Yeah, okay. So I guess that means no, I'm not going to, but we're going to keep going. Are you messing with me? I guess the perfect response is, are you messing with me? Oh, that's not very Reddity. But yeah, okay. It's actually not that convincing that we moved beyond Chatterbot here, but this is dev testing, and so that's, I guess, the way it goes. See, we're still on the Flask localhost and port 5000. So we're going to shut this down now. All right. So and now we've kind of completed step 2, and now we said, okay, how do we take this and how do we now go from this into Docker with using not just a virtual machine locally, but using our virtual machine and then using a container inside of our virtual machine that's even more portable. So I guess I fully X'd out of that. So let's kind of like go back down to level 0 here. Let's kind of try to see what tool that I'm using. I'm using a tool called Docker Desktop. And Docker Desktop you can download here. So that's just what I did. And Docker Desktop allows us then to, are your images secure? Not too worried about that today, Docker, thanks. You can see sort of containers, images, containers/apps, images, and volumes. And what we're going to do is we're just going to delete everything in here for now. Remove. Okay, image removed. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to really set up our folders for success. And we're going to set up our folders in such a way that we're taking what we've got so far, which is Dialo GPT bot. We're going to copy and paste this. And we don't have to do this in general, but just to be one-to-one with what we essentially did in the presentation earlier, we're going to create a Dialo GPT bot Dockerize. And what that's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to take, everything in here. And again, let's try to blow this up. And again, we don't really need this like cache stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to take everything in here except the requirements file. And we're going to put it into a new folder. We'll just call it source. This is like our source code. All right. And the idea here is that this is just cleaner, and this is now making it, giving us another layer of abstraction that sort of aligns with the whole Dockerizing thing, and that that we can use to help us. So I'm going to open up a fresh notepad here. And yeah, okay. Fresh notepad. And we're going to get a fresh document here started. And we're just going to call it Docker file. So this is the one we did earlier. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take this one and we're going to save it here as Docker file. So with capital D. Now, if you put append extension, it's going to say dockerfile.txt. So we want to actually remove this append extension thing. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of like figure out, okay, like what we're going to do now is we're going to be kind of in the container, right? This is sort of viewed from the container. And so we want to basically download Python from Docker Hub, right? And the way that we do that is like from, that sort of implies Docker Hub. And this, I think, is the most recent Python version. And then we have some sort of housekeeping stuff to do, which is like, you know, that's the whole working directory, you know, make sure that we're kind of assigning what that is. Then we have kind of the copy the requirements, right? Copy the requirements file. And so we can kind of do that with just a copy requirements.txt. And then these kind of like, you know, periods are important in Docker. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're always remembering our periods in Docker. We want to install the dependencies from the requirements file. So that means, you know, actually we're going to use run pip install read the requirements.txt file, and then we're going to copy the Flask app to the working directory. The whole thing. And the way to do that, now that we have kind of the source code all in one place, is to copy the source folder, right? So the last couple of things, we've talked a little bit about ports today. We're going to expose port 8080. This is kind of best practices. You'll notice that you'll see this a lot. And so, you know, I'd encourage you to look out and try to understand exactly what expose port means. But, you know, in short, like, you know, we're saying like, so from within our container, you know, how do we kind of like talk to stuff outside of it? Like from a network perspective, where should our network look to talk to our container? And you know, like, so it's a very, it's kind of a higher level thing to start thinking about is how does the virtual machine connect to the container, connect to the operating system, connect to the metal, connect to the network outside of the metal. And so, you know, so there's kind of a lot there. And for a starting data scientist, I think the easiest way to describe this is to just say, hey, like, we want to expose a port, you know, we want to kind of roughly understand that has something to do with the network. And then we want to make sure that we are exposing the right port and we're doing it the right way. And then basically this like command line call thing is basically to serve up the app, the Python app that we've created. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and I'm going to look in the source code, our source code, now that we have source code here, and we're going to open our app, and we're going to, you remember that stuff we saw in Flask earlier? We're going to keep the whole debug equals false. This, I don't think it has a you know, any effect on what exactly we're doing here, but you know, the idea is that the host is this open to external IPs host, and then the I think it's port 8080, right? And that aligns with what we put here on the expose. So port and expose are the two. So save that, save this. Now we've got our Dockerized DialoGPT bot set up. And now we can kind of like go to our Docker images. We don't see any, right? But what we can do is we can open up Windows Terminal again, and we can, first of all, we're going to chatty VM 2, right? Chatty VM 2, I believe. Let's see, what was our Chatty VM 2, right? Yeah, not so chatty VM. Not so chatty VM. Not so chatty VM. That's what we're using this time. Yeah, so we're going to basically activate this. And we're going to now move into this DialoGPT bot Dockerize folder. Okay. Once we do this, now we're officially in a place where we can call Docker. And Docker is going to basically just have a simple command called build. And what we want to do is we want to tell it that we're looking at Dialo. We're looking in this folder. It's going to pick up our Docker file, and we're essentially naming our image as something that we can recognize. So we're going to do DialoGPT bot image is what we're going to do, and then hit enter. But again, what I say about the period, Docker is really savage on these periods, and so if you don't hit the period, then it's not going to work. And this is what we really fast forwarded through, because what we're doing now is we're setting up an entirely new container. And that new container basically has to copy everything that it needs. And so if you kind of recall from the, we're going to have some time here. So if you recall from kind of the presentation, now, I guess I can kind of show this real quick, is that what we have here is we've got kind of this idea of our Docker program that's building up our containerized application. And in that app on Docker, we basically have all of the dependencies, requirements, everything that we need is sort of handled on top of Docker, right? So that's why this sort of level of abstraction right here is what we're seeing. You know, everything is being installed that we need into our Docker container, and that includes the each thing that's associated with a library, that's associated with NLP, machine learning and deep learning. So, yeah, now we wait. Now we wait. So I don't think we're going to hit an hour exactly here. But we're going to be close. We're going to be close. We're going to be close. Okay, we are finished. We're good to go. And so if we go back to Docker Desktop now, we see DialoGPT bot image. We see it's about 3.85 gigs, and we can just click run here. And I'll down select this optional settings, and this will just allow us to sort of line up port 8080 with our local host, so we don't sort of like have anything inexplicable happening right now. And you'll see kind of what I mean as this kind of spins up. If I click into this, you know, we saw kind of 127.0.0.1 port 5000. If we sort of like name the port here that we want to expose on, then it will actually show up as port 8080 in the URL in our browser. So again, here, this is like kind of like running the app through the command line, but we're actually just seeing it through Docker Desktop. And when it's done, we'll know. Oh, found an error in our app. Okay, right. Yeah, we needed to put that in quotes. The debug thing that I mentioned probably didn't matter. So we are in DialogGPT Dockerize. We are in source. We're going to app debug equals false. And nope. That's not quite right. Actually, what we need is we need a capital F false. We need a capital F false. There we go. That's what we needed. So since we had that error, we actually have to rebuild our image. So what we'll do is we'll just create a new image, and we'll call it DialogBot image 2. And this one will actually be able to create a lot faster. Thanks, Docker Hub. So now if we go to images, we can run this image. We're going to run it on 8080. Tender gangly. We're going to delete you. Charming Hertz. Let's see Charming Hertz come into play here. And we're running. You see it's on port 8080. What we can do is we can actually just hit open in browser, and you'll see localhost :8080 is up here. Hey Dialog, good to see you. Containerized. All right, yes, I am still around. Excellent. Okay, so one last step. Now that we've got everything set up, we can go ahead and shut down this this container, but we can essentially use the setup that we used to create this image to do the same thing in the cloud. So now we're on to part 4. Part 4 is the last part. We've got our local setup, but I couldn't like send that to people that aren't using my computer or aren't on my network. That would be not possible. So we want to go ahead and set this up so that we can do this. And again, Google Cloud Platform is something that you need to make sure that you're set up with to log in. I'm set up as Greg at Fourth Brain, and you're set up to actually have the billing go bill somebody. That's what they need before you can go creating instances and virtual machines and all of that. So when you get to your sort of home page here, you'll see there's a project name up here. And then what we want to do is we want to kind of just open up this Cloud Shell. And you can see down here, it's provisioning. And I'm just going to open this in a new window. Provisioning the machine, the instance, and the editor. The editor's up here. And one of the things that that you saw me do maybe real briefly in the presentation earlier is I set up a way to upload all these files. So this is one from earlier, Dialo GPT chatbot Dockerize. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually upload new files, and it's going to be a folder. And it's going to be this one that we just created called Dialo GPT bot Dockerize. And we'll select this folder and we will upload everything in it. All right. This one seems simpler. I think I left some folders in the one that I filmed the original with. I had 51 items there, and we only have 8 here. But 8 is really all you need. The idea here is now to let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. The idea here is to click into that folder. So Dialo GPT bot Dockerize. And now we're in the folder. We're in this sort of instance, this virtual machine, this project. And this virtual machine is sort of like the cloud editor that we're in at this point. And now all we have to do is we have to call this command gcloud builds submit. And we want to tag this thing, this new image that we're going to create. We want to like give it this, this project name. So gcloud builds submit tag gcr.io project name, and then Dialo GPT bot Dockerize, and then let's say GCP. And this is going to say, hey, are you sure this is legit? And I'm going to say, yeah, it's legit. Let's use Google Cloud for this. And then again, we wait. So if all goes well, then before too long, we're setting up our new container that's in our new virtual machine in the cloud. And once we have that container set up, then Google Cloud Platform really helps us out to kind of do the rest of what's necessary with one more command. And so we're almost there. You probably remember seeing some of this on the screen from the past, builds we've done, to just do it in the virtual environment first, then to do it in the Docker container, and now to do it finally within the new virtual machine, creating the new Docker container. So step by step, we're kind of moving up piece by piece. We are in the root folder here. We could have created another virtual machine, but we didn't. But like, fine, we're just going to go ahead and ditch this anyways. You'd want to go ahead and best practices, create another virtual machine within the virtual machine in the cloud. But we start to get pretty meta there. So don't worry about this sort of red text. And so as this kind of pushes, the official term, we're going to push the container to Docker Hub. We're going to make sure that it's talking to Google Cloud Platform. Remember, a similar container is about 4 gigs. And so when we go to deploy this, we want to make sure that we allocate enough space for that. Here we go, we're almost there. Playing the waiting game one last time here. GCP is figuring out a lot for us right now. So we're just hanging out. I think this counts as working. We are building our Docker image in our virtual machine in the cloud. Once we have completed this step, it will be built and we'll be ready to actually deploy it. So, if you're sitting and you're waiting, it's no big deal. There's just a lot of stuff happening on the back end here. And so, no cause for concern. Just hang out. And we should be built and good to go here soon. So a lot of empty space. I mean, there's a lot of empty space when it comes to real-time live coding. And so I'd be really interested to hear people's feedback in the comments on sort of how we might take this to the next level. Thinking about how to do similar things like this in the future. We have success. Okay, so we're almost there. Last thing we need. G-Cloud, run, deploy, image. That's what we want to do. gcr.io, FB MLOps, November 21, Dialog GPT, chatbot, Dialog GPT bot, Dockerize, GCP. And don't forget to allocate that memory, or we will get a failure of all 4 gigs. No thanks, don't need a service name. I am on the, I actually did East Coast in the last, I'm on the West Coast, 26. Doesn't really matter. Allow unauthenticated invocations. Yes, go ahead. And I used the wrong name when I was almost there. I must not have included this GCP, and that is indeed what happened. Dialog, GCP, Dialog GPT, bot, Dockerize, GCP. Let's just scroll back up. Dialog GPT, bot, Dockerize, GCP. What did I spell wrong here? FB MLOps November 21. Dialog GPT. Oh, no caps. No caps. No caps. GCP. No service. 26. And we are almost home. Fingers crossed. We're looking at about 72 minutes end to end here. Yeah. About 75 minutes to do this. With all the errors and with all the empty space for waiting. Maybe could have done it in 60. Maybe. And this is one that I sped up in the presentation as well. Because, you know, all this stuff just kind of takes patience. But I do believe that we're almost there. All right, let's see. What should we ask it? What should we ask it when it's done? And we are live. We are live. We're live. Will this hopefully help some people out? I hope so. Hope you do too, Dialo. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I hope this helps you out. Really do. And thanks for watching. Cheers.